What I like too is that he's like encompassing all peoples. And what's funny is like so many feminists will claim that the patriarchy has never included them in the intellectual discussion about future, right? Like they'd say men literally kept women out of...
Well, he made no mention of men or women here.
But that's what I mean. What I like about it is that he's literally including
humans. He's not including. He's saying this is what it is.
This is what it is.
This is the market. The market doesn't care what your gender is.
What your gender is. And I just think that that's great because it disproves the idea that certain genders have been excluded.
But the market is not, again, just to reiterate, it's not a collective entity. So it's not a group of people that you can affect politically and get a different outcome from.
Right.
No, the market is the process. So the process doesn't care because it's a process. The process has no...
It's just guess who participates mostly in the process?
In the market? No, well, yes and no. I mean, who's the greatest consumer?
No, well, now it's...
Well, but why are things produced? To be consumed.
Yes.
So actually, women do dominate.
Women and children are consumers.
Right.
But in terms of capitalists, historically speaking, the landowners...
Oh, yeah. But that's not the totality of the process.
Right,
and those capitalists only exist as long as there's consumers.
Well, yes, but what I'm saying is most men had to understand what the market process in order to be a part of it. So when men historically were being raised, they were more aware of like the way that systems work. And like you said, they like objects and they're interested in systems. So it just becomes this natural thing. Women suddenly were thrown into it without any understanding of like true economic theory, right? So they don't understand like what's a capitalist and what's an entrepreneur and No, they just understand wage working, and they don't actually want to participate in a free market. They want to somehow like be a capitalist without actually creating a business. Like, how can I make the most profit out of wage working and then also be upset that I'm not making the most money when it actually has nothing to do with you being a female? If you're only making 70 cents and somebody else is making $1, it's because you're dumb. It's not because there was some kind of conspiracy against you. First of all, you shouldn't be a wage worker.
Well,
like if you really wanted to make more money than men, you should start a small business.
It sounds like to the extent that women were hired in the early days of the feminist movement.
They were secretaries.
Yeah, no, but when they started to get promotions, when they started to get 70 cents to the dollar, which is not the case right now, but they still gets repeated. It sounds like they were promoted because they had the skills, but as you just mentioned, they may not have understood what their role is in the corporation. The corporation being a word that comes from the Latin word for body, so they may not have known or they may not have understood. Right, they might not have understood their contextual role in this corporate body.
Well, I know they don't understand. You know why? Because it doesn't make sense to abandon your
So
children.
all they had was the skill, but they didn't have the allegiance to falling into line.
Right.
And so that created a risk. In this case, the average was a 30% risk that the owners of these businesses were willing to take on, but they weren't going to pay the same amount of money for, as opposed to, a married man, because in the beginning, I'm guessing it was only single women that were doing this type of stuff. It wasn't married women. Because the people were still very conservative in those times. So in that case, when there was a man in the corpus, right, the man is typically married, right, providing for a family. The only way for him to function and make this all work is knowing what his contextual role is in this grand, big vision of whatever the entrepreneur,
but there was already a hundreds-year-long or millennia-long understanding by the genders of the fact that a man would separate from his family to return with bounty. Women did not get together to question and theorize around what would happen if the mother started leaving the children behind. They didn't. They just started doing it. They didn't they didn't start to ask these questions. There's Ayn Rand, and that's it. Like, there's not like groups and groups and groups of females who wrote all these, theories about what they see the structures of society becoming.
Well, what about the feminine mystique?
No, the feminine is like some kind of finding out about your inner essence that is more powerful than like living under the umbrella of the man's world. Like, as far as I understand, it's like,
well, that's your theorizing. Prior to the en masse movement of women to go into the corporate world.
Well, but if I'm not mistaken, mistaken, it came out way after the emancipation.
Yeah. It came out in like the 50s. Betty Friedan or whatever.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, though, that like before then, women just went and started things. They weren't well educated. They didn't think about it.
You're probably right.
I think that most men think things through before they start to execute things. And I think that women are impulsive, emotional creatures. I think what they wanted was some kind of autonomy, and what they got was more destruction. I think their families were already discombobulated as it is.
Well, yeah.
And then all they did was create more clear separation by removing themselves from the household. Like, they were already upset that men were leaving the household and doing other things, and they weren't very like committed or loyal to that nuclear family. That was one of the gripes, right? Like, I'm a prisoner at home and I don't have any autonomy. And then, but what about the children, you know? So now you've got a mother and a father who are going out to work in the corporate world, and this child is raised by the state. So what did you gain?
Gen Xers. That's what you gained.
Yeah.
And
so
millennials.
I think what women wanted was the man to be more present, more like.
And you know why
involved.
He wasn't more present, right?
Because it really
because the government was devaluing his money, so he could no longer provide the way Don Draper used to for a family of 5.
Right.
So he had to go out more and more and more. Maybe he had to drink to medicate, and start to have a generational gap of understanding and loss of the family structure. Yeah.
Right.
But ultimately you can tie this always back to the government, because imagine if it were the opposite. Imagine if the man's wage was capable of supporting a family of 12. Well,
which it used to be.
Right.
Well,
people lived in under different contexts in that time. But let's say that people were living Don Draper's lifestyle, which is new cars for everybody, huge house, more
nice
land,
clothes,
more property.
White picket fence.
It sounds difficult to think that women would have a lot of gripes there. Right?
No, I think bored. I think that's like.
No, I think that the big changes happened when there was a lot of inflation. Most women started to join the workforce in the late 1970s. The average cost of a gallon of gasoline in 1970 was 25 cents. The average cost of a gallon of gasoline in 1979 was like 80 cents. Something changed there. Something behested both parents to start working in order to make ends meet.
Yeah.
So things changed. Yeah. Now, there was government action, and then of course there's also the court intellectuals like Betty Friedan and the other feminists who are creating their subversions through text, and there's also television and all kinds of stuff. And it's all working in concert.
Right. Yeah. Someone sees in a movie.
In my group of friends, we call it Globo Homo. That's the term we have for that.
Why? What is it?
Globo Homo is just a term for this homogenous group of people that are all working in concert to destroy what was known traditionally as Western values.
Right. They don't believe in them anymore. It didn't happen for them. They don't want it to happen to them. They don't think it should be something to aspire to. And the degree that anybody has it, it should be destroyed and mocked, ridiculed, and hated.
Right.
And everything against it, anything that's against it is virtuous, pious, righteous, and correct.
And when they were the minority, they were they had the strong hold on comedy because a lot of their
the minority.
Well,
but now but they're the loud majority.
But they have control right now. Yeah. They have political control. So in the past, a lot of their attempts at subverting Western values contained within them very valid criticisms of Western values and some of the contradictions that they may have.
Well, the devil always makes a great case against,
right.
against God. There is an argument to be made.
But it's not a coincidence that now that they have political control and they own the media and they own everything and they can have a stronghold in the government, that they're not funny because they actually got everything they wanted, and it's very ugly.
It's very ugly.
You know what I mean?
And nobody likes it, and there's nothing funny about it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and it's sad, and everybody wants more and better, and they don't understand that it's like, well, first you'd have to make plans. Yes, if you want to build a cathedral, you've got to start, sketching out some serious foundations here. You're not just going to build a sandcastle and have it be a beautiful Notre Dame. You're just not. And that's where all these, I guess, quote-unquote conservative values come from. But see, the other thing people don't understand anymore, what we're talking about when we say left, right, liberal, conservative, progressive, or whatever, is not the 1960s version. And a lot of people being like, Reagan, and you know what I mean? Like some kind of, you're going to take away our abortion and all this stuff. And it's like, no. This has nothing to do with that. It begins with like, we even have a set of like, do you have a 5-year, 10-year plan for what you'd like to see your life be like right now? Like from 2020 to 2030? Are you just going to run around with a black hoodie, throwing Molotov cocktails into Nike stores, and then running out with like shoes that are sizes too big for you, and then jumping on the top of a car and getting your face filmed on a video that will be replayed through history, all of time, follow you through every job that you go to? Is that your American dream? What the hell? It makes no sense. You know, everybody else out here is like, God, like, okay, how do I find the right person, create like a real family so I can start a career and like, you know, have a life and have friends and make something of this world and help people and just be good and all this stuff. Like these other people, they don't even have plans one way or the other. They literally wake up and they're just like, I'm hungry today. Let's go to, you know, Waffle House or whatever. Like, okay.
And capitalism affords them that ability to have such a inconsiderate like existence.
Yeah.
Like because they had to actually like haul ass to feed themselves, they wouldn't. They may be a little more serious, a little more rigorous.
That's what Candace Owens was saying. She was like, the problem with the millennials is that we're living in a time of such peace and prosperity that there's nothing to fight for. And so the biggest thing we can come up with is like, let's change the bathroom signs, because that's us like fighting. Like I was telling my mom, I was like, so Black Lives Matter, right? Remember that day when like everyone on a Tuesday like put all their Instagram like profile pictures black for like 24 hours? Then what? What did you actually do? You didn't go out and like adopt a black person or like kiss a black baby or like, you know, spend money in a black neighborhood. You didn't go teach black kids in a poverty. You literally just posted a black Pantone screenshot on your Instagram in a digital world and thought that was it. I made difference. Like I really affected change in society. It's like, no, you did nothing. It's nothing. You didn't fight a war and win.
What would Jordan Peterson classify them as? Conscientious, high in conscientiousness?
No, conscientious people are conservative.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
So what would they?
Aggressiveness?
No.
Sorry.
He says there's two types of people, right?
Well, there's agreeable.
High in agreeableness.
There's neurotic. There's conscientious. There's disagreeable.
No, so they're high in conscientiousness because they felt emotional need to post a black thing to feel good, to feel like they had done their civic duty. I'm just saying that is how they must have felt. But it's
not even just civic duty. It's also like make sure that you are complying with the peer pressure of your.
Yeah, that might be another aspect of it.
It's literally peer pressure. It's like, look, what the cool kids do is post this thing, and if you're not gonna post it, like we're gonna exclude from cool kids. And the only difference though is that it's the opposite. So you're exposing.
I remember. Did you get people like I got this guy on Instagram going, you know, oh, if you think I didn't notice that you didn't post a black thing,
right.
Oh, great.
No, and the joke is like, no, we all noticed that you posted it. And we all notice what you keep posting. And when this is all over and we take November, which we will, and we take the next 5 years, which we will, and we take the next 30, because that's the kind of investment we're making right now as conservative capitalists, you know, who are actually thinking about the long game. Who do you think is going to hire you? Who do you think you're going to negotiate? Who do you think is going to collaborate with you? Who do you think isn't going to look at your past and try to judge it the way you judged us in the present? Well, it's going to be a huge reckoning because they don't have 30-year plans. That's the antithesis of conservative. If you're conservative, you're saving. If you're liberal, you're spending. They're spending all their fucking savings on this moment, and they're guessing that it's going to take them as far as this other group of people who are beginning to build something now. So I can't imagine that anyone who's on the Antifa side of things right now in like 2030 is having a good time. I think they're going to wake up.
That goes without saying.
They're going to be like 35, 40. They're going to be like suddenly like cutting their hair and like taking out the blue and like, you know, cleaning up and working at some coffee shop and saying, to us, like, hi, ma'am, how may I help you? And it's like, what happened to you? Well, in the riots of the 20s, like, I lost an arm and a leg, and, I tried to live in Chop Town, but, like, I got everything stolen from me, and I didn't get an education, and I never met a partner, so I never had any kids, so I got sick, and I got some kind of disease, and then after COVID ravaged me, like, here I am, putting 10-cent coffee into a cup, trying to rebuild, and feeling sad with my head and with my tail between my legs about, like, how I wasted my youth destroying society. I wish I had had more foresight.
Oh, and you have a something is, like, dirty on your arm. No, that's just my Reiki tattoo that isn't looking the shape isn't looking good anymore.
Yeah, like, all my tats are disintegrating and, like, turning into, and then everyone's gonna be dated by, like, which geometric pattern they put where on their body at what time. So you're gonna be like, oh, you're like a 2018, you're like a summer 2018 went to Paris to, like, do a yellow vest protest tattoo guy, like, oh, you're this person or that person. It's gonna be, like, kind of crazy, I think.